that's running. And we did have a power hit. So I've got UPSs here on everything. So if the lights go out, we won't have much of a show anyway. So, oh man. So this is the first time I've ever done a show throughout a tornado warning, and people are like, "What are you doing right now?"
Right.
And so here's what I'm seeing on the radar, Rob. I'm down there at the middle of the screen. That's me.
Oh, okay.
Right. For those
Wow.
So that's weather.com's radar of what is over the top of my town right now.
Wow. Yeah, are you just north of Wayne? Is that where you're at?
No, I am well, I'm right above the state line. So, there's I'm in a town called Coldwater. So, but
Yeah, it's
anyway.
not on that map. It doesn't look like.
Yeah, you can't see it. It's underneath a thing of red.
Just that. Yes.
I think we started the show anyway. Everyone, welcome to the new media show. And yes, the recorders. I actually should probably check that other recorder. Let me double check, because again, like I said, we had the power flash, and I can't remember if I restarted it or not. So if we don't have video, it's going to suck. So I'll let you introduce yourself for 30 seconds, Rob.
Oh, okay. Well, my name is Rob Greenlee, and I'm with Libsyn. I've been podcasting a long time. I'm sure anybody that's watching this probably has seen us on this show before, but this is a first for us, doing a podcast during a tornado warning. So, yeah.
All right.
All right, you're back.
Yeah, and it was running. So they've been blowing that horn for 6 minutes. It's
Wow.
still going.
Wow.
So, but I don't hear the shingles rattling. But everyone, welcome to the show. We've got, hey, you tell you what, stick around. The roof might come off, literally. And,
Nice.
And that would make for, as long as the video lasted, that would definitely make podcasting news tomorrow, I think, right?
That's right. Todd blown off the air by a tornado.
Oh man, I'm thinking. I'm glad I got my insurance premiums paid up. So I don't know if you can hear it; it's still blowing. So anyway, how you doing, Rob?
No, I'm doing great. I mean, that's what's great about those Shure mics, is that they're very they have a very shallow pickup area, so they don't pick up a lot of background sound.
So you can't hear it then.
I can't hear it. No.
Oh, that's good. So, well, yeah, here's one thing about living. Yeah, I've been in. Oh man, it's looking really. Yeah, the weather map just updated a tornado warning on the map. So that black big mark.
That's where you're at. Right?
That's essentially. I'm actually. I'm not as close to that as where that map button really is. So that is probably east of me a couple of miles. So anyway, there.
Okay, you're still clearly in the red.
I'm still clearly in the red right now, and I just refreshed that page. So anyway, yeah, living in Hawaii, you had to worry about a hurricane once in a while. I lived in California for a period. You had to worry about earthquakes.
Right.
I lived in Guam. You had to worry about typhoons. Here, it's obviously tornadoes. So, and I'll be surprised if we stay on the air this whole time with everyone in Michigan's having power outages today. So, if we go off the air, we apologize for you. But that's just Mother Nature playing havoc on electricity.
So I think I know your next purchase is a backup generator, Todd.
I have enough UPSs in here to keep the critical stuff safe long enough for me. I think, like the TriCaster and stuff, I've got about 30 minutes of power on that, and the Mac Pro and I've got all the expensive gear and UPSs and power conditioners, but backup generator, we have one at my mom has, my mom's a little bit of a prepper. And when the 2000 thing was coming around, 1999, switch over to 2000, they bought a massive. It is really raining here. I can hear it. I never heard rain in here before. They bought a massive generator that can basically power the entire compound, and it's massive. Runs on a big diesel motor and everything. But those things are not cheap. They are
Right.
not. They are not cheap at all. So, but no, I'm not buying a generator. I don't need one for the studio. If the power's out, I'm just going to go home.
Yeah.
But you and I were in a call a little bit earlier, and I had actually announced this this show. I think the way I called it on YouTube was Measurement Coalition is Strong. That's how I entitled the show today.
Yeah,
And-
I would say so.
Yeah, we had a great meeting with the IB team today. Can't go into too much detail, but I think there was.
Yeah.
I think it was a great meeting.
I think there was some great, I mean, I can probably say a little bit about it. There was some great discussion about streaming versus downloading, which is an interesting topic.
Yeah.
That had been resolved quite a few years ago, I thought, but it came up again for some reason. So,
In all seriousness, Rob, if I leave, don't be shocked.
okay, it's getting serious out there.
Yeah. So I'll keep my ears peeled, but if you see me leave this camera screen, don't be. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just leaving.
You're gonna go straight to the bathtub, right? Is that where you're going?
There's no bathtub here, but there's a toilet I can hang on to. So yeah,
Okay.
so the meeting was good, and but I think there's a potential for some folks to be severely disappointed here in the future. We're about ready to take action against a popular device, which we have to blacklist. And because it's doing weird things.
Do we want to talk about it, Todd?
I guess we can. It's not like it's really unknown because it's Apple Watch.
Yeah, I don't know that we've talked about it on this show about what the issues are around that.
Yeah.
But-
So what's going on is anytime you take your Apple Watch off and you put it on a charger or it gets near Wi-Fi, it downloads all the podcasts that you are subscribed to in addition to what your phone has already done.
Right.
And 90 plus 98, 99% of those downloads are happening and nothing ever happens to them. They just go sit on the Apple Watch. Now, you may have listened to your podcast on your Apple Watch before, and I've seen
But you
that.
may not have listened to it on your iPhone.
Right.
See, I mean, that's the core of my question to the group too. Was are we going to see subscriptions that are available on the watch that are different than on the iPhone?
Well,
So is that something that's coming in the future where people will just get their certain? So let's say there are shows that they only listen to when they're on the run, while they're out running or something, or are they short form content that they can get on their watch,
yeah.
but they probably don't listen to on their iPhone.
Mhm.
So, how do we distinguish between these two devices when they're synchronized right now?
Yeah.
So,
So, yeah, it's lightening up here. We're starting to, I think we're through the worst of the storm. But anyway,
good.
yeah.
Good,
so,
good.
so the situation is this double counting's going on. And not
Right.
only that, if you're paying for bandwidth right now, you're probably paying for 5% additional bandwidth. That's not, we know that on our side, it's a 5% hit. It's because people are not listening to it on those devices. And if they are, and the main thing is it downloads on your phone. Yeah, you're subscribed, and then it downloads on your Apple Watch, and it's the same subscription
Right.
most times. Because I don't think there's a delta yet,
Right.
like you indicated. So we're at a point now where we have tried to get Apple to do this, and they say it's a feature, not
Right.
a bug. And we're going to very high potential of having to. Well, Libsyn already did it. You guys already blacklisted
I mean, it's
Apple
been
Watch.
blocked for a couple of years now, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how long, but it's been a long time. So I think since the watch kind of had its own data connection, I think is when we've kind of blocked it.
Right.
So yeah, it's not an issue for us. It's not going to require any kind of change on our side.
No, but there's
it's just what the broader industry is considering.
Yeah, a lot of companies are going to have not blocked it. And so that means it's a 5% drop in revenue for companies that are for individual, that's a 5% hit that you're going to have to take.
Right.
And, people are some of the companies are wanting to push to the right this decision as long as possible because of that conversation. But
yeah, I mean, some of the things that were talked about on the call really, sometimes point back to, especially when you start getting into terminology, right, of downloads versus streaming, kind of get back to client side play information, and we just don't have that. But yet, I just feel it, Todd, and I'm sure you feel it every day too. That there's just this increasing demand for that type of information, but the problem is it just doesn't exist.
Right. I talked to an app owner, and they were, they had said, it was kind of funny. The introduction email says, "I'm so and so from such and such, and we have a significant usership of listeners that use our app for podcasting, and we'd like just to talk to you." And and I said, "Sure, I'll give them 30 minutes." And I looked them up and pulled their percentage, and I think it was like 0.003 something. So it was, like 0.3%. They hadn't even broke 1% yet. And on the phone, I told him, I said, you want to make podcasters love you? I said, because in my opinion is if a podcaster is getting something from the app, getting some information, like Apple Podcasts is giving information, Google Podcast has, Spotify has, you'll be more endeared to the podcaster to promote your app if you're giving them something in return, building a portal, letting them claim their show, letting them see some of that. I guess it's not completely, or see some of the client side data. That was loud, whatever it was. See some client side data, and you can, and then podcasters will start talking about you, and maybe the listeners will start using it more. And, and we talked about a bunch of things, but I think these app developers are all trying to figure out how to break out. And there's only so much you can do with UI UX.
Yeah.
And
I was a little shocked that the conversation even came up on the call today about streaming, because, you could see the reaction from some surprising sources, right? That were like saying, that's not such a good idea to start naming things streaming when it's not.
I was actually encouraged. I thought there was going to be fisticuffs.
Yeah, I thought, I said, wow, I don't have to, I don't have to jump on the bandwagon very hard here.
Right.
Yeah.
Holy, that's thunder. That's amazing thunder.
Wow. I'm not hearing it.
You're not. It's shaking the building.
Wow. It just speaks to the quality of your microphone.
Well, there you go. I guess so. Everyone says, "What are you talking about?" Look, and I'm looking sideways. And, I'm trying to see if the window's going to blast in or something.
Something's going to come flying through the window,
like my car. So and we laugh, but that could potentially happen. So so going in and to preface that, we really didn't say where there was a discussion on the table whether or not we were going to add streaming to the spec, and there's already a discussion about streaming in the IAB spec.
Right.
But I think what we're pretty much realizing here is that there is a consensus that the download is alive and well, and it's not going anywhere.
Right.
At least the measurement standard. Now we can help podcasters understand progressive streams or progressive downloads, and if they want to call it a stream, but still from a reporting upstream wise, it's a download.
Yeah, I mean, if the player side wants to use that terminology to communicate with their listeners,
right,
I think probably okay. But it's just we can't pass that down to the advertising space. It's just going to confuse the issue.
So,
Yeah.
But otherwise, I'm pretty happy with that was a pretty good call. And compared to some things 2 or 3 years ago, where some of those meetings would be pretty intense, but I don't feel there was any contention. It was just like, yeah, we're all friends, and we're competitive friends, but we all agree that.
Right.
So
I think we've come a long way on that.
Oh, a long way. And there was 38 people on the call today. So, a couple of us from each company. So there was some duplicative there. But Frank, and I asked a Frank question and I got some Frank answers back, which I thought was interesting as well. Not everyone weighed in, but basically the question I asked was, is anyone doing advertising reporting other than download? Are you using a stream as a reporting? Are you just trying to get on the table? Is anyone else up there sending a different message? And it appeared not.
Yeah.
At least from those that responded. So.
Yeah. No, I would agree. I think everybody was pretty on board.
Yeah. And there were some heavy hitters on there today too. So.
Yeah.
Hi Rita. Hi Stephanie. Hi Mike. But so that was good.
Hey Todd, are you getting any companies going after you right now around IP targeting of advertising? As far as data sources?
They want IP targeting or they want geographic targeting?
They want to work with platforms like ours to get access to target advertising based on existing pools of user behavior data.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're constantly trying.
That's the key word.
Yeah.
Do you want to go into that any at all?
I don't. I don't see any reason why we can't. But I'm not going to name names or say what any great detail. I'm just going to say that there are companies out there that are exploring working with the podcasting world around matching up databases of user information from other sources that have opted in to share that right off of websites and other platforms that are looking to map that data to IP addresses off of podcast downloads.
And typically the conversation kind of goes sideways when I say, how are you going to opt in podcasters?
Right. Well, their argument back is
we don't have to.
They don't have to because that information isn't flowing from our platforms to them. But yet for it to work, it has to have an IP address, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but they're claiming to have anonymized the IP address by using a unique identifier number. But my question gets back to is, well, there has to be some translation that happens from the IP to the identifier, and that's where the problem comes in.
Right. And as just for the record, and I don't know what Libsyn's stance is, but Blueberry's stance was we implemented GDPR globally.
Yeah, same with us. Right.
That means
I was just raising this topic because there are companies out there that are pushing into this medium. Ones that are not currently, from what I can gather, are not supplying this information to podcast platforms, but are exploring the option.
But I have had evidence that there are players in the podcasting space today that are providing IP data back to these types of players, and that's maybe their business model.
Yeah. I don't know who those platforms are offhand, and I probably wouldn't say here even if I did, but it would. I think that there's a lot more companies out there doing this, right, that are trying to get involved in the industry. So that's the bigger message.
It's been 2 or 3 years ago. I was in New York in an office getting a demo, getting a non-podcast demo, but a user attribution demonstration. And they were able to pretty much tell me who I was in their database. They were able to pretty much profile who I was and what I bought and what I did and the places that I traversed
Mhm.
and everything using location data, using just a lot of different. Hey, if you haven't checked your Google location data out recently, if you've got that turned on,
Right.
I highly recommend everyone go and look at your location data history at Google. And if it doesn't freak you out to the ninth degree, then sorry, I don't know what to say. But taking all that data and taking all these things that happen when we walk into stores and what we Google and what we look up on our phones. And so we're all pretty much in a database already.
Right.
Grocery stores, you name it. Facial recognition.
Because honestly, Todd, we've all opted into stuff.
We've opted into all this stuff.
And oftentimes we don't read the fine print of the OK button that we push because we're urgently trying to get to some piece of content somewhere,
or go to Kroger's and get on their coupon system or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, and read that. Of course, they've been the best at it for years. So it just is natural that they want to use that same data to target us via podcast.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that they would love to get the information about what those users are listening to, right? In their data.
That's right.
Right.
And I'm sure they're willing to pay for that data or do some sort of exchange or a number of different models.
Right.
So as a business owner, we have a dilemma.
Right.
I'm sitting on top of hundreds of millions of IP download data per month. I think like 400 plus million data points a month or something we're looking at.
That is associated with topics.
It's associated with an
genres.
IP. It's associated with a show. It's everything,
Right.
And we can do cross checking. I can see on an IP by IP basis how many shows you're subscribed to. At least it comes through our system.
Right.
But we don't do anything with that. We anonymize that data.
Yeah.
As part of the GDPR stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it just doesn't get used.
Right.
Anyway.
We don't.
Right.
And we've said we wouldn't sell it, and it's in our terms of service. We're not going to sell your data.
Right.
We've put it explicitly in our terms of service. We're not going to sell your data.
Right.
So.
Or even make it available.
Right. Or make it available
on an advertising type of relationship. Now, the big challenge, is Apple and Google and Spotify and Pandora. They can all do this because they have proprietary platforms.
Mm-hmm.
And my worry all along is that the economics of this is going to drive these type of deals into the proprietary platform. Right.
Yep.
And maybe that's the right place for it to be. It's not going to help the dynamic ad insertion business.
Yep.
That's currently being built in the podcasting space today, because that's usually done from the host level, not from the listener level.
So if you think that you're out there, you need to ask your host. You need to ask your hosting platform, what are you doing with my listeners' data? You should ask your host. If you're a podcaster, you should ask that. You should ask all service providers that you use in the podcasting space, what are you doing with my listener data? You should ask those questions.
Right. So, Todd, I don't think most podcasters think about it too much.
I don't think so either. I think a lot of them, the younger generation, don't care. I hate to say it that way, and I don't. That's because they're already used to being tracked by everything.
Right. I think there is something to that, Todd, and I think we have talked about that part of it before, where I think that there is just an acceptance now more than ever that this is what's going to happen. I think this is like one of the last bastions of pushback, right?
Right.
So, yeah, and it gets back to the very structure of an open medium like this. We're not a proprietary walled garden medium, which you typically see supporting these type of protocols and these type of processes. So, yeah, it's a price you pay for being an open standard platform, right?
Yeah. So interesting how the phones ring almost concurrently.
Well, I think that there's a thought that there's a lot of money to be made by doing this. I question that line of reasoning, though. I'm not sure that there is as much as everybody says there might be.
I think people should start watch. Now, why would somebody go buy a podcast app?
That's a good question, Todd.
Okay, so I think people should start watching podcast app acquisition and who's acquiring them.
Or who might be acquiring them as you look to the future.
Right. Because if they can't get it for us, where can they get it?
They have to get it from the listener on the listener end, right?
Via the app.
Yep.
So they've went around us and they just went and bought the app.
And then they get in the advertising business.
Dun 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 da 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 dun da da da.
And I do think that we're starting to see that a little bit from the bigger players. Yeah.
How do you feel about that, podcasters? Is your listener safer with Apple, with Google, or with Spotify?
It's a values question, Todd. It's a values question.
Well, I think from I don't know Apple's business completely, but
well, I know that they're not in the advertising.
No,
business.
They're not in the advertising business, but they're pretty savvy on who their customers are, and they're direct marketing to us anyway. I get ads from Apple all the time because I've got a plethora of Apple products. So they only care about you buying more Apple products and buying more apps, and they do make money from advertising within the apps. They do some revenue share there, I think.
Yeah.
So
Sure. Yeah.
That's a given. But, app du jour, that's free, it's been bought somebody, has value, then why did they buy that? They didn't buy that app not to make money. Let's not be naive here. So are we the dummies, Rob? Are we the dummies for not giving them data and getting a check, and they just go buy the apps and get the data and don't have to write us a check? So are we the dummies here?
Well, or should the industry be more proactive here
and
realize that there's
they're not going to be. We're the last salvation of being I don't even. I shouldn't speak for everybody, but I don't think there's too many folks that have the same mindset as maybe Blueberry and Libsyn.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're a struggling hosting provider, and need more revenue, someone calls like this and says, "Hey, we got a deal for you."
It's awfully tempting.
Especially when, they're waving a monthly check in front of their face.
Right.
Because they're going to get the data one way or the other. They're going to come in it 5 different ways, and they're going to get the data.
Right.
They may get it from just, if they make deals with app developers, they're going to get it all from probably the only one that won't sell is Marco.
Yeah.
That's
true.
Your listeners are probably safe over there. But
for now,
I'll give Marco the benefit of the doubt. He's pretty big on advocacy for privacy of
yeah.
listeners.
Oh yeah, that's true. He is.
So
Hey Todd, did you? I'm sure you saw the back and forth with James Cridlin about the podcast rankers topic again. That came up this past week
yeah,
about how there's now 3 rankers in the podcasting space, and this is most popular podcasts and networks.
Sure.
And all 3 of them came up with different different rankings, and that Joe Rogan showed up as the number 1 podcast and podcasting only on one of the 3 rankings. Yeah. And back and forth, this guy, I know we've talked about this and gotten ourselves into hot water, but this is just another example of what we're talking about, right? That you can't really have an industry ranker that's based on a proprietary or different set of podcasts. Each one of them.
And one thing's for sure is Adam Carolla no longer has a world record holding podcast. There's no way. Of course, no one's done another, haven't paid Guinness the money to come out and do another look. But I had a podcast come across my radar. As a matter of fact, I looked at the show, and the 2 words out of my mouth were "holy beep," and then I quickly went over and looked at another set of data and said "holy beep" again. This one came out of nowhere, and I was just like, "Get them on the phone." And it's like I'm doing. Hey, how you doing? We wanna help you. You want to help you with some advertising, and you're way overdue.
Right.
But there's some shows out there that are just having phenomenal growth right now.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, like wow. Where did you come from? Those
Right.
types of growth numbers. And I'm looking at the traffic they're moving, and it's in the P's, not in the T's. When a single show's moving a petabyte or 2 of
Right.
traffic, now, ladies and gentlemen, that's a number.
Right. That is a number. Yes.
That's a number.
Well, Todd, they're probably making it a 256K audio file. So
No, they weren't.
That's probably the reason.
No, they weren't. I looked.
Okay. So anyway, I mean, it's an interesting question that there's a lot of podcasts out there that are quite large that the industry doesn't really even recognize or know about, right?
Yeah.
Because there is no integrated reporting system into a ranking platform.
I had no clue who these guys were until about 3 hours ago. And I was in my system just doing it because I had a customer call in and said, "We got a problem with this." I went and looked. I'm like, and of course, it crossed my eyes. I'm talking to the customer. I'm like, "Who's that?"
Well, even a show like what Adam Curry and John C. Dvorak do,
Oh.
The No Agenda show, he's self-hosted.
That's right. Yeah.
He's not even hosting on any of the major hosting platforms.
And they probably make $300,000 a year.
Right. So, it's all these ranker stuff. Let's call it what it is. It's all smoke and mirrors. Yeah. It is. Yeah.
So
there's a lot of folks that aren't going to like that we said that, but
it is smoke and mirrors. I've always said
that's
it.
the truth.
I look at the list. I say I can displace. I can move 4 of their top 10 right out. You got the same thing. You can, and the next thing you know, it's a whole new list.
Right.
And again, now let's be frank. There's not that many massive shows.
No, there's not.
But also
It's
there's
like 0.5% or
yeah,
less.
but there's some that are single shows that do as much business as a whole network.
Right.
So that's the thing too, is they need to break it out by network shows and by individual shows, and then the whole list changes.
Or one show that's larger than entire corporations podcasting.
Right.
Big corporations.
So it is kind of funny, and then we're not even I've got one show down in Mexico that work with us, and they're like wow, they're massive. And in Mexico, Brazil, so we're not even talking outside the United States, we're just talking primarily within the United States. We're not talking about all those massive shows that are in other countries.
Right. Right.
And I got one of my team members the other day that we hired back in January. He's like, and I was just like, I'd gotten this email in and it was in Spanish and I'm, using a translator and it wasn't quite right. And one of my team said, I do speak Spanish. I'm like, why didn't I know that? And so now it's like, hey, will you look at this and make sure I'm responding correctly? And so, of course, you guys have Elsie, so she can speak Spanish. So,
Right.
it's difficult when you have mostly English speakers on your team and you have, emails come in Portuguese or in, whatever language du jour.
Yeah, I've been seeing more and more of that, and I've
Me
been
too.
using the Google Translate more and more these days. So it's a way, you just cut and paste what they sent you, and
Yep.
it spits out one in English, and
And
then you just do it the other way around. Yeah.
And it's not perfect by any means.
No, it's not.
No.
Yeah. Todd, did you see this post in Medium? It says the interactive AI podcasting debut. I guess there's a new company that's trying to create podcasts out of text-based questions. So you can ask this platform to ask a question, and it'll create a podcast out of the answer.
I saw the news headline, but I didn't go into the article at all. Did you?
Well, I'm looking at it right now.
So you can ask a question, and it will create a podcast out of the response.
The answer. Right.
That would be fun to play with. And that would actually make a pretty good podcast, to ask this thing questions and then just play the responses. Now, if someone wants a show idea, there you go.
Yeah. Well, that and like we've talked about on this show before, what if you can create a voice profile for yourself? So like I go in and I create a voice profile, kind of like an Alexa experience, right? And then have that applied to this.
Rob, I get enough trouble by myself. I don't need some AI getting me in more trouble.
Doing it for you, right?
No.
I guess we're going to have to create blacklists of our AI dialogue now, right? Is that what is that what we're going to do? Have to
because you have something and you would have to scrutinize every word and syllable that thing spit out. Because, I'm sorry.
Well, it's supposedly artificial intelligence, Todd. It's not artificially stupid.
Let me talk about, here's what artificial intelligence is today. It's a tool that has been programmed by a human programmer.
Right, that's true. With his flaws.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Until we get something that passes the Turing, what is it? The Turing effect or Turing rule. I think that's what it's called, where it can be, pass a certain number of tests, then it still has to be programmed by man to begin with.
Though I would say that this app that I'm talking about, I don't know that it's really a podcast. I think it's one of those things that it's like an app that you ask it questions and it spits back answers.
Well, we should play with that on the next show. We should get it downloaded and then we should ask it some questions and play it back. That would be very entertaining.
Yeah, I don't think that it actually auto-generates the RSS feed or anything.
Well, does it generate audio or does it generate a recording or?
It looks like it basically creates text and audio.
Oh, we gotta have some fun with this thing. I'm serious. It would probably be a pretty cool podcast to just, ask it questions and then let it talk or whatever it does. And then actually have commentary about the responses. I just gave someone $1 million idea on a show. So.
Right. There you go, Todd.
Let's
get her done.
Get her done. I don't have time to do another show, but I'm sure there's someone out there that's looking for a domain now.
Right. Yeah, right.
Not that we haven't done that on this show before.
Oh, never, Todd.
Uh,
Right.
so it looks like the storm has passed. Looks like I've made it through without the roof disappearing.
That's a good thing,
So
Todd.
my
You
mom's
survived another disaster.
my mom is replying on our chat, so I think the power stuff must be out at on out at the compound. So otherwise, or she's on generator. I don't know, but she's still online, so that's a good sign, I guess.
Yep. It is a good sign.
And I hope no one got hurt. But yeah, a lot of damage up in north of Grand Rapids today. They had 80-mile-an-hour winds or something like that. It was nuts.
Wow.
We didn't get the winds here, I don't think. So, I don't know. I just have had my head down. It was kind of weird. This morning, it's for us, we're coming out of lockdown next week. Actually got an appointment. Some things I needed done that the doctor's appointment, couple of things. And so it's been kind of weird because we're on, technically, things have been starting to loosen up a little bit, but we've been at this 13 weeks. And this afternoon, this morning, I was just like, I got to work and it was, I really just wanted to lay down and take a nap, even though it was 9 a.m. I don't know. I think missing the interaction of people is at least for me today was taking a toll. Have you, what are you hearing from your team? I keep asking my team, how are they doing? And I know that members are starting to take a little more PTO now, that there's some stuff that they can actually do. How are you doing, Rob? How's your guys' team doing?
I think we're holding up pretty good. I don't really sense a big change in too much. Other than just not going to events anymore.
Right.
So I think we've adapted to it pretty well. I think that there's other folks in the company that have been used to coming into the office every day, that have had probably more of a change. But for me, it's really, I just not traveling.
Yeah.
I think that's real. And it's actually a pretty big change for me, given how much traveling I was doing.
And I don't mind being out of the travel, but I do find myself getting a little antsy. And I keep saying I need a vacation. And I was going to go back to Hawaii for a week, but they quarantine me in my house still. So I'm not going until I'm not going back to Honolulu, not being able to go out and get sushi or, go to the beach or, I'm not necessarily going to go to the beach. I just don't like the idea of being stuck.
Right. Yeah. You fly in there and then you're stuck inside the whole time.
Yeah. The whole time. I can, but if you get caught, and I don't have a Hawaii driver's license no more. So it's not like I can go in there and say, oh, I'm going to my house. And they're like, okay, you're a visitor again. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, Todd, I saw on the podjobs.net site about I'm not breaking any news here. It doesn't appear, because the SiriusXM folks, I put this out on a public newsletter, the Pod News, but it looks like they're looking for, the SiriusXM folks are looking for a partner manager of podcast content.
Huh. That sounds like a pretty good job. Are you looking for another email address, Rob?
No, not necessarily, but I thought it was interesting because it doesn't mention Pandora here, so I thought that was interesting.
Partner manager, podcast contents partnership, SiriusXM.
But I guess it does list Pandora in the description. But I thought that was interesting. It just shows that Pandora's looking to make some forward. Specifically Sirius is listed with Pandora, which I think is interesting.
So it says SiriusXM and Pandora joined together to create a leading audio entertainment company, blah, blah, blah. Position: identify, negotiate, execute, implement, and manage the business relationships for third-party podcast publisher partners. Thought they had one of those. Manage all deal flows and closely work with cross-functional teams to create partnership agreements with podcast publishers, working closely with podcast ad sales and marketing. Lindsay, are you looking for a new job, or
I don't think that. I think he's probably looking for help.
Yeah.
what it looks like. 'Cause he's
Partner
been-
manager. So what is Lindsay's job position title? I don't know what.
Yeah, he's kind of the guy that's in charge of the whole thing.
Yeah, so minimum qualifications, bachelor's degree, work experience in podcasting, other media, relevant partnership positions, requirements, and general skills.
So 4 years of work experience in the podcasting space.
Okay. I guess I qualify for that.
It's actually a pretty short period of time, actually.
It is. And where do you have to go somewhere? Let me look.
Well, it's probably remote based now. I would
Yeah,
think.
I'm looking. It doesn't say if you have to, because sometimes the job description say whether or not you have to relocate somewhere.
Well, I know that their main office is in New York.
Yeah, I don't, so if you're working in New York, oh my God, first of all, hey, anyone applying for this job and you've never lived in New York or around the New York area, just add an extra $100,000 to your job salary requirement. I'm not kidding. If they make you move to New York City, just add another $100K.
Right. $100K.
No, I'm serious. Add another $100K. If they say, well, this job's going to pay 80, 90. Say, okay,
Right.
that's in, and they say, oh, by the way, you got to live in New York. Say, okay, 180, please.
Right. It's expensive to live in New
It's
York,
incredibly expensive,
Right.
And you're
Well,
going to,
it's like living in LA too. LA is the same situation.
well,
Or San Jose or any of those places.
having lived in Hawaii, ask for additional $100K.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
And they may laugh at you, but if you work the remote, then you don't have to worry about that. So,
Right.
Interesting announcement. They're also same thing in Canada. There's all kinds of jobs available right now.
So this is,
Apple's
These are the
got
kind of-
4 jobs opened up.
yeah, these are the kind of opportunities that are coming up around podcasting that really never existed
Yeah.
too much in the early days of the medium. So
Spotify, Gimlet. Apple has 5 positions. Some of these are a little older listings.
Yeah.
But iHeartMedia, they've had a number of Vox Media, Podcast.co. All these are out of Manchester, UK. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 jobs opening. So,
and
it's a
there's
category now.
A lot of activity going on outside of the U.S. right now too in podcasting. A lot of stuff going on.
And a lot of international companies are now, exploring, for business relationships too.
And I saw that the Infinite Dial came out for Australia. I don't know if you saw that, Todd.
I did not see it.
It's still showing that podcasts, listening is still going up, still doing well. It does look like in Australia the listening age is still tends to be a little bit what's it on the older side,
Right.
35 to 54, but the younger demo is definitely coming up, but it's not as high. I believe in the U.S. the younger demo is actually higher now than the 35 to 54.
Yeah, I don't track percentages or even try to remember them. That's like trying to remember the numbers in a phone book.
Right.
But-
Yeah. Podcast awareness. Yeah. Anyway,
So there
it's
was,
interesting.
and these are announced they're launching in Israel. So that's interesting.
Right.
And those of you using the Rodecaster Pro, big updates coming to that supposedly. And there's just a lot of just regular news is coming out. Did you see the article on Pod Hero that came out? This new app called Pod Hero.
Yeah. I saw that.
There was how should I? They got an interview that was in Wired that. Well, I'll say that the Pod Hero guy is looks to be a bit of a rebel.
What makes you say that, Todd?
He's not afraid of saying some 4-letter words and having a strong opinion. So I did appreciate that in the article. But he's very much anti-advertisement and wants to put money in podcasters' pockets by people paying Pod Hero $6 a month, and then he splits the revenue with. I don't know how the revenue split works in the app. Right. But $1 for Pod Hero, $5 for the podcasters, and they're going to split it somehow.
Wow!
I tried something on my show. I was, and I took this from a YouTuber. So I've had my donation thing for a long time, where people can donate to the show using PayPal, and then go on recurring $2, $5, $10, $15, whatever dollars a month. And I saw some YouTuber was making like a wish list of gear, stuff they needed. And there's reoccurring stuff here. Always need batteries. It's just it's an ongoing thing for the office and the show. So I put a wish list together, and I didn't know there was a term for this, but one of my listeners sent me an email and they said, "Dude, e-begging? Really? E-begging?" And so I guess there's a word for it. It's called e-begging. But I'm like, if you don't want to support the show with cash, but you want to buy me a box of AA batteries, that's just like a donation to the show, right?
Right.
And I did put some higher end items on there. There's some sugar daddy wants to hook the show up with a new camera or something. That's good too, right? So,
well, I mean, the concept of like a bridal gift list,
right.
Like that. You can certainly do that for a podcast, right? So
the guy says, "I've heard it all from you." He said, "E-begging, I'm unsubscribing." So I lost a listener before e-begging.
Okay.
So
Todd, that's what we could do on this show. Just create like a pod gift list.
That's right.
And then listeners can just donate things to us, through the show.
They could, and we could actually take like old gear and make it like a podcaster. Because you and I don't need microphones or anything like that. But we could take that stuff and redistribute. Make that like a pod giving thing. There, go get that domain, someone. Podgiving.com.
No, Todd, we're not going to take re-gifting and put it into the podcasting space. Sorry.
But anyway, so e-begging. I'm now e-begging, Rob. So I'm e-begging for $11.99 box of Amazon AA batteries.
Oh boy,
I'll probably.
I can see a new term coming: pod re-gifting.
Or I'll get someone that'll start a social media campaign against me because I'm not buying rechargeable battery.
Right.
Because I'm buying AA throwaway.
Right.
Here's the thing about rechargeable batteries I found. They don't last that long, and they're not worth the for me, I get
extra money to pay for.
Yeah, I get 4 or 5 charges out of them, then I put them in the back, and maybe they've gotten better over the years, but it was just like, really? And if you want really good rechargeable batteries, they're really, really expensive, and you can't afford to do outfitting across the board. But yeah, I lost a listener because of e-begging. So,
right. Hey, well, Todd, what's your thought on this Pod Hero thing? If you really think about it, how much different is this from a Luminary? Really?
Luminary's not giving money to only people that no, Luminary is paying signed contract. Everyone else doesn't get nothing.
I know, but at the core,
it's the same thing
here, right? It's a monthly subscription,
right?
Or is it only for 1 month that you pay?
No, it's a monthly subscription
every month.
Yeah.
So Pod Hero is taking $1.
Yep.
And the rest of it's going to the podcast.
And how they're figuring that out, I don't know. Right. So if 5 people,
it's split equally across all of the shows that are on the platform.
All equally, or all by volume?
Or is it based on download?
I would imagine it has to be based on download.
But isn't that kind of the same model that Luminary is doing?
Except the only difference is Luminary paid up front, and these guys are paying it in arrears.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, maybe to some degree. Probably some shows are on
So it's not going to hurt to be over there if I get a 32. And probably here's the kicker. Here's how Pod Hero. So we have to go and read the terms of service, because even us on our affiliate program, unless you get $50 in your affiliate account, we don't
Right.
write you a check. Now, we will cash you out like 2-3 years later, but we don't write you a check until you hit at least that $50 level, and it goes to a certain amount of time.
Right.
Then we zero people out. But can you imagine they're saying, well, you have to hit at least $25 for us to give you a payment. So the 90% of the people will never get to $25. So
Right.
they may never have to write a check.
So does it actually say that it pays based on percentage of downloads?
I don't, again, we're speculating
Let's see here.
We don't know.
Yeah,
Pod
no.
Hero, we don't know. We're just
Yeah. We're just speculating.
we're
Right.
speculating. Yep.
So, I'm looking at their list of Q&A questions, and I don't see how many podcasts can I support at the same time as a question.
Oh, do you designate which shows you're going to support?
That's a good question. It says the answer to that question is there's no limit to the number of shows you can support. Our goal is to allow you to meaningfully support your favorite podcasts with one monthly amount. With that said, we caution that as the number of shows you support grows, the contribution to each shrinks.
Oh, so you get to pick the shows
That you want your payment to be
go
applied
to.
to.
Oh, that's different.
And it says how much of the $5.99 a month actually goes to the podcaster. It says $4.99 a month goes to the podcast you support.
Right.
We're proud to charge podcasters zero fees, so we ask supporters for an additional $1 contribution, bringing your total to $5.99 a month to help run our service. The additional dollar is optional, but crucial for us to give creators the tools they need to be successful.
So this is interesting. So you get to designate as a listener which shows you're going to support with your $6 contribution to Pod Hero, and a $4.99 of that goes back to this. So if you designate 4 shows, you're each is going to get $1.25 or something a month.
Right.
That's
an interesting model.
Mm-hmm. Especially if you're supporting a couple of shows now.
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting model. And the app takes care of the transaction for you.
Right.
So the podcaster doesn't have to, solicit that. I guess this gets back to what we were saying, I think in an earlier show about donation models, right?
Yep.
And how that would be best operated by the listening app.
Yep.
And that's exactly what this guy's doing.
Okay. It's an interesting.
It
is interesting. It is. Now, the question then really becomes, can you get, what this would really work great is if all podcast apps supported this. So would they have not been smarter to have built a platform that could have been utilized by all podcast apps? Then, of course, getting adaption is even harder. Then you're probably splitting the pie more. So I guess this is one way for podcasters to try to get their listeners to use Pod Hero as their primary app.
Right.
But
as a way to support those shows.
But I'll go back.
Strong communities.
But as a podcaster, though, do I really want them going over there to put money in a bucket to then come back to me? Would I rather have my podcasters just put $2 on PayPal a month?
Right, directly
to you, directly to me. Yeah. I think I would rather have them doing the $2 to PayPal, or even if it's a $1.50, whatever it's going to be a month. I've always said, this is saying this kind of crazy. I look at Geek News Central. I look at this show. Rob, if we had $2 from every listener of this show a month, both of us would probably be pretty close. Well, not quite, but we could do some really incredible stuff.
Right. Now, it does have one question in here that they did answer, and that question is, can I keep using my current podcast player?
Oh, probably you can.
And it says you can.
Oh, so they don't care.
But we're pretty sure you won't want to. Pod Hero app combines powerful social tools with all the features you'd expect from a world-class podcast player. So I'm not sure.
So what they've really done there is there's an app, but they have a platform that is basically they're making their money off the volume and becoming so
Right.
it's you can look at this a couple of different ways. The skeptic in you can, but it costs a lot of money to build the app.
Well, he's saying here that you can still use Pod Hero as a way to centralize your podcast support. Just tell us which shows you'd like to support. And you can keep listening using your podcast player of choice.
Right.
So that means that you can still subscribe through his system,
Yep.
not use his app,
Yep.
and use any other app.
Yep.
Is basically what he's saying. There's no technical integration.
So basically, you pay him and they pay everybody else.
Right.
And they take $1 for that.
Right. And if it's not based on downloads, then it makes sense.
And on a $5 transaction, until he has real high volume, he's probably paying 30 to 40, probably 30 cents to process that.
That payment.
The payment might be, it depends. The highest expense will come in on the credit card processing fee. I don't know how much it costs to do the transaction the other way. Probably nothing if they're doing bank transfer through ACH. So they're really, in all honesty, he's not making that much. He's making like maybe 60 cents on a,
right.
And it has to be pretty automated. It has to be pretty automated and pretty high volume to make any money.
Well, I think that's what he's trying to do here.
Yeah.
It does also say, does Pod Hero work with all podcasts? He says almost every podcast. So he's pulling from the Apple APIs, it looks like, because he's saying he's got over 900,000 active podcasts in the catalog. Active podcast might be a little bit of a incorrect statement, though.
So
active from the standpoint of has episodes available, but active isn't. That would be an accurate number for actively updated podcasts.
So you have to claim your show, and they tell you how many supporters you have, how many recommendations, and what your monthly revenue is. So they do have a portal for podcasters, obviously, because you're going to have to put some banking information in there or something.
Right.
PayPal transfer or something to that effect.
So, Todd, I would imagine this show is already in his database.
I'm sure. But again, if you want to donate to the show, there's a PayPal link right on the front page of every post of this podcast at newmediashow.com. So,
right.
It's
not necessary to do that.
Right. So therein lies the
dilemma. Right.
So really, as a podcaster, I don't want people going to Pod Hero, but as a listener, you may want to, because maybe you can consolidate your. So I wonder if they get people to have a bigger pot of money. So let's say you're going to do $20. I wonder if you can have a bigger pot of cash. So wouldn't it be, if I was him, I would say $6 is the minimum. But if you've got 10 shows you're supporting, you can up that to 20 and do, or let's say 10 shows and do $2 a piece or something. It's.
Yeah. So what you're saying is the more shows you subscribe to, the higher that monthly fee is.
Yeah, well, you should be able to, $6 is the minimum to get started on his platform, but he should allow, if he's smart, he'll allow the listeners to ramp up to a higher amount so that if it's really a convenience for the listener to have one payment.
Right.
This is what this is. It's a convenience for the listener, not the podcaster. So he needs to market to the listeners saying, hey, you're giving donations already. You're going to do a Patreon here. You're doing PayPal there. You're doing something there. Why don't you just come here and do a single? It doesn't really even need to be. He could have done this without the app.
Yeah. Right. Well, that gets back to what you were saying earlier about it being a platform.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but at the same time, very easy to duplicate. Someone could come in here and compete on this level if he sees any success. And I must admit, if you're going to do Patreon's quite a pain to set up. You got to send somebody just over to Patreon to get signed up, and you go through that, maintaining that. I just don't understand it for the average podcaster. I still think just a PayPal or Venmo or any of these systems that are out there, you just put that on your site to make that available for donation. As a matter of fact, probably based on, you should probably have multiple payment methods on your site because not everyone has a PayPal account.
Right. But it would be more convenient if the listening apps offered a way to display that option to donate.
There is an RSS tag for it that, that we both support, and only certain apps support it.
Support it, right. So he does lay out how to get your money in here. It says you'll be able to connect your bank account or debit card after you've claimed the show.
Yeah.
You can withdraw funds once a month, and there's a minimum of a $20.
There we go. Minimum 20. So if you don't get to 20, I understand why he's doing it, because he's probably got he probably doesn't want to do, I don't know. I don't think it costs to do ACH transfers. Maybe it does. Maybe his bank will charge him for an ACH transfer. But there again, it's a minimum of 20.
Right.
So if you get 16, 17, 18, and that's all you ever get.
Right. So he currently supports 30 plus countries for this, it looks like, on the payout side.
Yeah.
How do I tell my listeners about Pod Hero? He goes, we're glad you asked.
So basically, so it's basically a donation model, and it's just a different way for different route to get people to support your podcast.
So he wants folks to mention on their show that this episode is brought to you by Pod Hero, the easiest way to support your favorite podcast. He's got like a little outline for a spot script here that he's written up about how it works. So anyway, it's an interesting platform. It's an interesting kind of twist on the idea of donations.
Yeah.
And a combination on the subscription model and donations concept, right?
What's interesting, I talked to my team at one time about something like this, some sort of but then I kept talking myself out of it because I kept coming back to it as a podcaster, and I was like, I just have why do I need you? If I have a link on my own website, why do I need you? And
well, I think it gets back to Todd is that this app doesn't really have a lot of listeners, right? Yet. So, your chances of making a lot of money here are pretty low right now.
Pretty low. So it needs volume.
Right.
And they have to be your listeners. So it's not like he's distributing under some complicated scheme based upon, popularity in the app. He's using it. You can designate who. So that was smart.
Right.
Well,
true. Yeah.
He had another app before, so he basically reworked this app to do this, and so we'll see what he does, and from his perspective, he only needs probably 4,000 or 5,000 listeners making this minimum contribution to be able to. I don't know where he lives, but if you're thinking about survival money, if you get 10,000 minus your processing costs, you probably got a lifestyle business there.
Mhm.
I don't know how big of his team is. So, and they're on Twitter, so I was going to look at their Twitter account. How many people they've got on Twitter? Ooh, the internet is slow.
Hey, Todd, what do you think about podcasts that are based on just doing interviews? Do you think that's a viable strategy for a podcaster now?
Well, I think, and this is weird because, I spent so many years doing a solo show.
Right.
I always
That's
thought,
why I'm asking you, because you've got a solo show perspective, right?
you have I would not want the headache of having, just like you've already found out for this show. How hard is it to book people? It's hard to get people booked to get on and do interviews, and that long-term sustainability, being able to have, I can imagine, I'm at 1453. Imagine me having to have found 1,453 people to interview on my show. I don't think I would have lasted that long. I think I'd have run out of people to talk to. Maybe
Right.
not. Maybe people would have been rinse and repeat and been on several times, like they have been on this podcast. So,
No, that doesn't happen a lot. It happens occasionally.
right,
Sure.
occasional. So, I just don't want to. I don't think I'd ever want to have to be in that position. I think maybe I'm getting to the gist of why you asked the question, because I think we're starting to see a hybrid now. We're seeing people that are doing interviews and doing solo shows, doing a mix of that, where people are doing a couple of, maybe one show interview, one show solo.
Right. Or like in this model, most of the episodes that we do is just you and I,
Yep.
and occasionally we'll have a guest.
Yeah.
Which I think is the perfect model, actually.
And Saturday, man, I thought about that show almost all day Sunday, stuff that was talked about in that show. And if I was to be starting over and I had the resources, I'd probably do a true crime show if I was starting over today. But, because it kind of piqued my interest. But then again, that's a show you can't do on your own. You need a team type of show. But it really was an interesting, it's an interesting genre. And, but you can't do that almost. Well, I guess they have some of the shows they're doing week from week, but yeah, I agree. I think this show's model is pretty close to perfect. But again, I'm also doing a solo show that has a never ending supply of information.
Right.
I picked a genre that's tech news. There's, even on the slowest weekends, I can find 10 articles to talk about in the tech space.
Yeah.
So I never run out of stuff.
Right. I mean, if you think about it from the standpoint of, should you do an interview show or a solo show, or should you do, a group type show where you have a guest or a host and a co-host, or maybe a couple of co-hosts? I mean, I think those are the main decisions that people make. And I think what we came up to with this is that people told us over the years that they actually prefer the shows as just you and I.
Right.
And my thought on that is that's so. When I used to work for Microsoft and Zoom, one of the things that was talked about at the company around consistency of brand messaging is around having a what was called a red thread of messaging and values that a particular brand has, right? So if you apply that to what a podcast is, that would be an analogy that the consistency of something within the program from episode to episode to episode is a way to maintain audience, right? Maintain a connection with an audience. And I think what the dynamic is with us, Todd, is that you and I both have strong opinions on things, and that creates a red thread through all of our episodes, right? That people listen to this show because they like to connect with you or they like to connect with me, and they come back for that every week. But if we were to do an interview show, it becomes less about you or me, and it becomes all about the guest, right?
Yeah.
And that causes listeners to come in and out of your program, right? Because it's very possible on Saturday, a certain amount of listeners came into that show to hear Donald, not to hear us.
It's true.
And are we going to get those listeners back listening to us next week?
And we had some on the live stream last week that they popped in and say, "Hi, Donald." It was on the Facebook Live.
Right.
Who's that? Someone that we'd never seen in chat before.
Right.
So will they come back and listen? That's, you don't know. You're right.
Right. So, I mean, I guess it's an opportunity for you to reach maybe new. This whole psychology model of how important are the hosts. And you look at like a Joe Rogan podcast, and it's a really, really good example of a guy that's really had a strong kind of connection with his community and his audience. And the guests add to that. It's not necessarily the other way around. And I think a lot of people have said over the years that it's best for you to do an interview and then basically ask a question and then you completely back off. And the show's all about the guest. And I just don't agree with that.
Well, we don't do that here when we have a guest.
No.
So
it's a conversation. What you want to create is conversation, not one-way communication.
Because we know a popular show format where they get asked 13 questions, and it's the same 13 questions for every guest.
Right.
I can't imagine doing a more boring show.
Right. That's boring.
I mean, boring.
Right.
And then there's other shows that do a lot of research on their guests, and they dig stuff out that has never come up or maybe was lightly mentioned in another interview, but they've spent 20, 30, 40 hours preparing for a guest, and they have a slam dunk interview.
Right.
Well, I don't have 40 hours to do research on someone. I go read their LinkedIn page, and that's 3 minutes before we go on the air.
Yeah. So but as a host, you have to have a certain amount of curiosity with what you're doing too. The curiosity part is what gets you through that. Right. Even if you don't do a lot of deep background on a guest, your curiosity will tend to pull you in a certain direction that may be consistent with what your audience would be looking for, because they may have that curiosity as well.
And to be honest, before you invited our last guest on, I really had nary a clue of what they were doing.
Right. Or who Donald was.
Right. Not at all.
Right.
And so I wasn't too excited about, I just didn't know who this gentleman was. Hadn't a clue. And he has a true crime, so that sounds like a good segment to talk about. And you had mentioned some other things he was doing. So that's a good fit for what's going on right now. And then, and it just worked out that I kind of got sucked in. I think I got sucked in more than you did.
Yeah. Well, Todd, I had a feeling that's what was going to happen.
It's kind of weird how that happens.
But that's not unusual for you. I've brought in guests to the show that you really haven't said, well, I want that guy, or I necessarily even knew about this person. This happened. It's happened many times in the past, and I kind of do it a little bit on purpose because it creates a different dynamic on the show, and it creates a genuine curiosity in you, and it always turns out great because you have a curiosity.
And at the same point, we have, it's kind of funny. We talk about Lindsay a little bit. Lindsay was trying to figure out how to handle me. He was worried about my going after him based upon him having heard the show. And then when he came on the show, he said, let's do this again, So it was.
Yeah. So we're talking about Lindsay, who runs
Pandora
podcasting. Right. Yeah. He's been on this show. He was actually on the live stage at Podcast Movement.
So he was, he was going around asking people, how do I handle Todd?
Right. He was all worried about you.
He was worried, where I was going to bite his head off or something. We had a great time. Well, because, I think part of it too is that, we talk about stuff sometimes here that makes people uncomfortable a little bit. And, and we don't, well, we're just kind of the way we are.
Yeah.
We don't have an opinion at all.
Right. I mean, that is a certain amount. The reputation of this show is to talk about difficult topics. Right.
Oh, man. It's, and I think going back to your original question, then for some people, the solo interviews just works for them.
Right.
And I think
it's easier. It can be easier, but it's also can be harder too, depending on who you are.
And I think it's a lot of it has to do with the personality of the individual. And I couldn't do it, on my own. I couldn't do. Well, take that back. I do.
You've done it in the past.
Well, we do it on podcast. We do it on. I've done on Podcast Legends, done on Podcast Insider. But the type of interviews I like to do is I want to get down in the guts. Like the thing I want to find out, like when we do our podcast,
the surface, right?
Right. I want to find out why you wanted to do a podcast. What was that? What was that guttural? What was that thing that really made you say, this is why I want to do a podcast? And then I want to find out, did it deliver what you wanted to, and what are you getting out of it as the podcaster? And number two, what is your audience getting out of it, and how's it changed your life? And that's, to me, for podcasting, I've been astonished by the stories that I've heard from podcasters that started out with a goal. It shifted on them, and then it led them different places. Sometimes it delivered exactly what they were trying to accomplish, but often it morphs. And I think from my perspective, that is always, to me, the kind of the exciting thing about, and I think the feedback I've gotten from people that have listened to those episodes before, they're like, holy cow, that person's life got changed. What is dinging here? Oh, I'm having messages come in. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but
yeah, I can. That's okay.
Let me turn this down. So,
but yeah, I mean, and I've heard stories too where people start down this path and it completely changes their lives.
Yeah,
and they had no idea that was going to happen to them in the way that it did, and how quickly it happened. How they completely changed how they do things on a daily basis, and what the impact is on their reach and the interaction that they have with people in their industry. It can be a transformational situation if you're successful with this stuff.
Yeah. Rob, we're at
the bottom.
We're there.
Right.
So did we get deep enough for everybody today? We had people come in and out. Oh, Martin, we're never going to do that.
Oh, what did he say? I'm not
Conversation should be president. You are unique. He said president. No, we're not going to talk about the president on the show. If that's what you're referring to. You are unique characters, Rob and T.O. We're not going to talk about politics on this show. At least I think. But with that said, I'm Todd at Blueberry.com. At Geek News is my Twitter address.
And I can be found on Twitter at Rob Greenlee, and that's with two E's on the end. And I can also be reached via email, robg@libsyn.com.
So we appreciate all of you being with us today. We thank you for your time. And yes, we're still here. The roof did not depart the building when the tornado warning went off and everything here in my community. So live to tell another day, to story another day. All right, and we'll be back with you on Saturday at 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Hope you'll join us. And thanks for being here. We'll see you next time on the New Media Show. Make sure you get over to newmediashow.com and subscribe to I think I pointed the right way, to the podcast if you're not already. Thank you for being here. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
Yeah, I don't have the graphic to put up today, but